What is going on, guys? It is Nathan Valley here, and I got my man Ben. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about my personal favorite lead generation strategies for going as a new wholesaler, going from 0 to how do I get to 2 to 3 deals per month consistently. Guys, if you don't know me, my name is Nathan Valley. I've been wholesaling for over 5 years now. I've done a bunch of deals, bunch of different states. Pretty much everything I've done has been virtual. I'm known for locking up over 100 contracts in a single year. I did a 30-day challenge to where I did $20,000 deal in 30 days in a brand new market, starting from scratch without spending any money on marketing, and a bunch more I've done too, but that's just a little bit. Ben, who are you, brother?
Yeah, so I run a marketing agency called BoltDeals.io. I've been doing this for a little over 4 years now. And over that time, we've generated a little over $15 million in sign-up fees for wholesalers that close anywhere from 2 to 3 deals per month on the low end to as many as 40 deals per month on the high end. So we work specifically on their marketing channels, specifically Facebook as well as Google Ads. We assist them with building the right sales team, sales processes, things like that. And then the back end, quote unquote, boring stuff like the metric tracking, funnels, websites, all that stuff that is needed to not only sustain but scale the company.
Love it, man. That's a lot you got going on there. So guys, let me share my screen with you. You're going to see my my super high tech layout here for what we're going to be looking at as far as lead generation goes. All right, boom. So favorite lead generation strategies for new wholesalers. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, because there's, going from 0 to 2 to 3 deals per month consistently. It's a little different from when we're going from 3 to 10 plus deals per month. And we're going to touch on that a little bit. But if I'm starting from scratch and I'm getting from 0 to 2 to 3 deals per month, well, there's two things I can look at. There's inbound leads and then there's outbound leads, right? So inbound is I am sending a letter or I'm doing something like bandit signs to where they are seeing it, right? The seller is seeing it and they are calling me, right? That is traffic coming inbound.
Right.
So two of the most kind of common ones are going to be bandit signs and direct mail. Now, bandit signs, it's funny because I've got mixed feelings on it. So bandit signs are called bandit signs for a reason. It is not always legal to be putting up the signs. Definitely, guys, check with your local municipalities and see, hey, what are kind of the rules and laws and stuff around, putting up bandit signs? Are they allowed in your area? All that good stuff. Always check that first. But a lot of places, they have kind of regulations against it, so you got to be careful. But I will say the very first deal I ever did was actually from bandit signs. And one thing that you'll see here is I'll tell you guys what my personal favorite is kind of after we go through all these. But there is also an element of the answer of what's going to be the best and work the best for you. It's going to be dependent on you, your specific circumstances, and your specific situation. So for me, in my market, I'm originally from upstate New York, a relatively rural area when I was first getting started as a wholesaler. And I started out cold calling and, I was kind of getting leads here and there, but I was like, man, I need to start getting results faster. So I was like, I'm still going to do that consistently, but let me kind of test out some other stuff. And so I tried bandit signs. And now, again, I lived in a pretty rural county up near mountains, woods and whatnot, but there was kind of in my whole county, there was like one really big shopping district where, within a 1 mile roadway, you've got the mall, a bunch of shopping plazas, the Walmart, the Sam's Club, all that stuff. And so for me, and there was never really bandit signs anywheres.
100%.
And I blanketed this place on one day. I mean, like I had 4 signs on every single corner going down this whole road. And that's actually how I got my first deal. I got a crazy response rate from it because nobody else was doing it in my specific market. Now there's other markets to where you'll see a ton of them. So that's going to kind of play a big role. But bandit signs can be a good way for getting started. It can be cheap. Also, if you're doing it, I personally recommend just get the bright yellow. And I'm a fan of handwriting your message on there. We buy houses and a phone number. Reason being is like, oh, Nate, but that doesn't look that good. It's because that message matches the market that we're looking to speak to.
I actually want to add on to that, Nathan, because something that I know a big influencer here in Houston actually does as a little strategy is that he puts female names on the bandit sign. So instead of Richard buys houses or Ben buys houses, they would put like Avery buys houses or Lisa buys houses. Because the way he explained it, and I thought it was absolutely genius, is that most of these sellers, they're somewhat, I don't want to sound like sexist or anything, but they're more attracted to like speaking to sellers. That's why you see, for example, with any marketing now, I know some wholesaling teams, their front end lead managers or acquisition managers, pretty much the first point of contact is technically is most of the time a female. I don't know what it is, but there's like it adds some sort of like warmth. It lowers that sales resistance. So I think a little secret strategy is that whenever you do bandit signs, you could just like put your wife's name or your partner's name. So whenever you do answer the phone call, when a seller does call in, what you can literally do is just say, "Hey, that's my partner. She's busy right now. I'll take the call and help you out. Is that a problem?" So I think that is also super like small sneaky strategy. But taking a step back, I think the entire goal of marketing in general, regardless of where you're at, whether you're a beginner, your experience, whatever the case is we just want to generate leads, right? It is my fundamental opinion, and I think and I'm sure you can agree with this, Nathan, is that in any business, regardless of whether you're a wholesaler, you are selling coaching, whatever the case may be, you need to have leads, because without leads, in my opinion, you don't have a business, right? And it's funny because I speak to so many wholesalers over the last 4 years, and sometimes there's this like it's like strategy. It's like reverse wholesaling. I think the way they do it is like they find buyers first, build a cash buyers list, and then start to generate sellers. Which, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but in my personal opinion, based off of the people that I've spoken to, they're doing that to avoid the hard work, right? Because from what I've seen, it's a little bit easier to generate a cash buyer and find cash buyers, get their criteria, and then try and find sellers. But from our experience, it's a lot easier to speak to sellers, or it's not easier, but it moves the needle more to go out, generate the sellers, attempt to get them under contract, and then find a cash buyer. So I'd love your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, so we're kind of like the black sheep in the family when it comes to that. So and the reason why I say that is we actually do both simultaneously. So we don't believe, like do one and then the other, because I'm a big believer in, I don't care how good of a deal you have under contract. If you don't have a buyer that's ready, able, and willing to pay you for it, as a wholesaler, you don't make any money.
Exactly.
And so like in a business standpoint, it's that cash buyer, the investor that's buying, but that is the person that is paying us. That is our customer. That is the person we're truly serving. So that's kind of where we need to start. But at the same time, to kind of what you're saying, I also agree that doesn't mean necessarily let me start by trying to find cash buyers, because what you'll find is, especially the good ones are busy. And if you call and just say, "Hi, I'm looking to do wholesaling. I don't have anything of value for you on this phone call, but can you tell me everything you're looking for?" They're not really interested in that conversation either.
Correct.
So we kind of do a hybrid approach to where we're finding opportunities, but at the same time, before we're getting it under contract, we're finding the buyer, having that conversation, we're giving them value, and we're actually figuring out, hey, what exactly are they willing to pay on this specific property before we get it under contract.
Gotcha.
That's just kind of our personal approach. That's worked well for us.
It sounds like it's like the underwriter sales strategy, but like it's actually there's actually a quote unquote underwriter, because you see some of these like sales strategies out there where there's like, "Hey, let me put you on hold." There's like a fake underwriter, which I think is genius. I'm not gonna lie, but in the back of your head, like, okay, there's not really an underwriter. But now when you do have somewhat of not an underwriter, but somebody you can negotiate with / against, it gives you a little bit more conviction on that call with the seller. And I believe if you can transfer that conviction to the seller and or buyer, the chances of you closing that deal are just a little bit higher.
Love it. 100%, brother. Now, we talked about bandit signs. We've got direct mail. So you got bandit signs as one option. and then direct mail. The other thing with inbound, guys, is inbound is typically going to cost a little bit more money than some of the outbound strategies. Why? Because with inbound, it's kind of like the tools are doing a lot of the work for you, whereas outbound, it's cheaper, but it's because you're doing a lot of the work up front. Now, direct mail, this can be a mixed bag. Direct mail, there are people that love direct mail, swear by direct mail, and there are people that, have lost their shirt off their back. Now, let me be very clear. It's not that any one of these strategies are good or bad. It's how well does it work?
Correct.
Right? How cost effective is it? And direct mail, just kind of like with bandit signs, a lot is going to depend on your market and also how well you're able to do it. So direct mail something, if you are brand new, I typically wouldn't recommend, hey, I'm just going to do direct mail, because it's usually going to be more expensive than other options. And usually when getting started, it's just, there's still so much that you have to learn. And I don't want to be kind of fronting all that money, but it is, I mean, guys, direct mail has been a strategy that's been around like since the beginning of time. And to this day, I mean, if you go out to your mailbox today, I guarantee you'll probably have 1 or 2 pieces of direct mail from some company or something. And it's because it works. No difference here. Now, outbound, here's where it's going to get a little bit interesting. So outbound, it's kind of a little bit different to where you can still use kind of inbound strategies, but step one with outbound is, well, first I need to put together the list of, okay, I'm reaching out to people, but I got to first figure out who. And some of those options, well, I can have a list of people that are in pre-foreclosure, or I can go driving for dollars and find my own list, or put it together a list that's tax delinquent, probate, right? People that are that passed away and families are inheriting the house, absentee owners, code violations, and there's many more options. Now, couple things. This is gonna be a really hot take. And Ben, I don't know if you have any feelings one way or the other.
Okay.
So the hot take, you're driving for dollars. This is a very popular one for getting started. And there's going to be maybe some of you that disagree with me, and that's okay. I still love you. Driving for dollars is like F tier for me. This is, if I had the choice between driving for dollars or pouring Tabasco sauce in my eyes, I'm probably going to go with the Tabasco.
100%.
I know it's a little harsh, but it is funny.
It's funny because I've actually seen, and I've spoken with wholesalers where they've quote unquote scaled with driving for dollars. Not scaled deal wise, but scaled the marketing channel, if we want to call it a marketing channel, right? It's more prospecting in my opinion, but they would actually build relationships with like mailmen, like delivery people to because they're driving around neighborhoods and stuff. So it's like scaled, if you would, to build relationships with those people and then shoot them a referral fee. They're like bird dogs, right? So if you want to quote unquote scale door for door, driving for dollar, I would recommend, because this is what I've never done it personally, not driving for dollars, but the wholesalers that I have spoken to, the way they scaled it was building relationships with delivery people or people who drive a lot. If you know somebody in your family that does Uber, that's also a possibility, as well as going on bird dogs, right? So back in 2020, and I have a funny story on this. When I first found out about wholesaling, I realized that you got to be 18 to sign a contract. I found out when I was 15, right? And I was like, how can I make money while still being in the real estate space? And then I found out about bird dogging, where you can drive around. Like you're 16, you just got your license. You drive around neighborhoods, find ugly houses, find their address on Google or whatever, and try and skip trace them and shoot them over to wholesalers. So I think so the way you go about that is go in a bunch of Facebook groups, go in a bunch of like high school / college groups, and offer like, hey, we'll give you $500 if you find us this type of property. And a lot of it has to be visual. So if that's something that you're doing right now and you want to quote unquote put driving for dollars on steroids, 100% I would try.
And, again, I'm not saying, guys, no one of these strategies is good or bad. It's just, how well does something perform? And to kind of explain why I feel the way I do about it. it's not that you can't do deals from driving for dollars. I just personally feel like there are much better options.
Oh, 100%.
Driving for dollars, I have done a good amount of it. And just when you kind of add up all the factors, it's, typically I need to use some type of tool, some type of software or an app. Those usually are not cheap. But then on top of that, I've got to actually drive around, right? So gas money, and which today's day and age isn't that cheap either. Like that is an actual expense to take into account. But then 3, the time of actually doing it. Like this isn't a let me drive for 5 minutes and I've got my list and I can go to work. This takes time to put it together. And then there's also a lot of ambiguity around, well, what somebody thinks should be on a driving for dollars list versus someone else. So are you putting together a list of, oh man, like
There's
I just
a lot
drove.
of moving parts. There's 100% so many moving parts. You have to like find the neighborhood, plan your little route. You have to find the property. Now you have to skip trace the property. Now you got to see if they actually want to sell the property. It's just like there's so many things that go into it. But if you're like it's the only shot, you're working a 9 to 5, you don't really have time. It's an option.
And the biggest thing for me is the number one thing we are looking for, guys, as wholesalers, is we are looking for motivated sellers, right? Motivated sellers. Driving for dollars, the only thing I'm really able to pick out is the condition of the property. And although the condition of a property is an indicator of, okay, this is something I can add value to, it doesn't necessarily mean that there is any motivation whatsoever.
Correct.
So that's one thing to keep in mind. And again, it's not that it is impossible or it can't work or that, no one can ever do a deal from it. I just think there's better options. So let's talk about some of those options that I personally like a little bit better. So we talked about there's tax delinquent, absentee owner, code violations. I kind of throw those all together in sort of the same tier, right? Tax delinquent, I like because again, somebody's behind on their payments. That is a very strong indicator of, okay, there is some type of motivation or distress here. And then again, that, with the condition, all that other stuff, there's a strong likelihood that all of that is going to be following that. The other thing is tax delinquent lists. And again, code violations and absentee owners. It's very easy to find these lists nowadays with the softwares and tools that are out there. If you're using something like, I know we like to use Batch Leads for a lot of stuff or Privy. Those tools, I mean, you can pull a list in 5 minutes. So it's very easy to find, and then boom, I can just get to work and start marketing to this targeted list. So I love that. And the other thing with driving for dollars is that also to add to it is it limits you to an area to drive to now, right? So it limits you to your local market, or you have to drive to a different market to start driving for dollars, which I know some people have done it, and I absolutely love the effort and the dedication. But guys, there's ways that I would do things different or much more efficient ways. So tax delinquent, absentee owner, code violations, pretty good. But I still feel like there's something better. So for me, as far as lists goes, pre-foreclosure, I love, and also probates. Now, why is it that I love those two lists? Again, pre-foreclosure, super easy to find the list. The other thing with pre-foreclosure, right, is there is a ticking clock, right? That is not me. It's not like there is a ticking clock to where they need to make something happen or they lose everything. That is, and they might not be motivated today, but that is an incredibly strong motivate, right? Like it's just slowly turning up the heat, and no matter how stubborn someone might be, when it gets hot enough, someone's going to want to do something about it.
100%.
Right. So that's what I love about pre-foreclosures. And it's one of those things to where I know no matter what, if I'm working a pre-foreclosure, like I am not wasting my time, right? No matter how unmotivated this person may seem right now on this first conversation, like I know this person is worth my time. They are worth my marketing dollars. They are worth my effort. And the likelihood of me kind of being here to offer a solution and for this to work out to be a really good deal, the likelihood is extremely high. Now, the one thing with pre-foreclosures is they can be a little bit hard to get a hold of. Because it's such an easy list, there is a lot of competition. But again, guys, this is for people going from 0 to 2 to 3 deals per month. Why do I want you going after a list that has a lot of competition on it? It's because when you're just getting started, you can do the unscalable things. You can do the things like when we talk, man, Nate, how do I compete with these hedge funds and these big companies with all these teams and unlimited resources and this and that and the other thing? Guys, because it is just you, because you are just getting started, you can do things that nobody else can. All right. And use your imagination and always kind of come through a framework of how can I add value to this person? And again, you're not wasting time. Think of it as you're investing in your marketing to that person, whether it's through actually spending money on marketing to that person, or whether it's, maybe doing an act of kindness for them. Maybe you mow their lawn, maybe you shovel your drive. There's a young guy that we know out in Utah to where that's all he does. And he'll like shovel their driveway for basically like a whole winter or whatnot. And maybe at one point they were in pre-foreclosure, then they weren't. And lo and behold, they'll get to a point to where they have to sell the home and they want to work with him because he's just been there. He's added value. He's done things that nobody else. And they know they could get more money working with other people, but he has built so much rapport and so much reciprocity that they are set on working with him. And I think on average, he makes like 60, 70K per deal. It just absolutely crushes it. And guys, it's not like he's mowing lawns every single day, right? It's not, he doesn't have a lawn business, or it's just like the simple little things that other people can't do. And so that gives you a really good competitive advantage. And also, guys, none of those things are necessarily expensive, right? That's the other thing. When first getting started, I don't know if you guys were like me, but when I first got started, oh my God, I was broke. I had no money on the very first expense I ever had in wholesaling was I spent $37 on skip tracing. And I was like, oh man, I hope this comes back to a deal, right? And some of you guys might be there right now, and that's okay. So this is kind of what I would recommend. Now, probate is a little bit more effort and kind of a little bit more technical, but such a good list. And one of the reasons why is because, right, pre-foreclosure, again, it's a situation where someone, they have to get rid of it. Probate, the motivation is more of somebody just inherited a problem, or they either want speed or convenience, right? Or they're like, oh my gosh, I can't afford this house. So some people might think, oh man, I wish I could inherit a house overnight. Well, what about the person that's living paycheck to paycheck, and then family member passes away, and now overnight they inherit a house that has, let's say, a $2,000 to $3,000 monthly mortgage. They already were barely able to pay their bills. Now they have this, and the house is like 3 states away, and there's all this junk and stuff to clean up, and they're overwhelmed. And now this house is making them unable to pay the bills for their family. Guys, this can cause a lot of problems for people, and being able to offer really good, unique solutions that can solve this person's problem immediately is really big. And the nice thing about it is not only are you solving really big problems, but with probate specific, this is something someone inherited. So any money they get from it is just kind of like extra gravy, right, in their life. So, selling at a discount for that, they might not mind it because they're like, dude, well, I mean, I got this property for free anyways. It's so much more of a hassle for me to maximize it. Like, yeah, this extra chunk of money right now, sure, is it less than what I could get if I were to do this, that, and the other thing? Yeah, maybe, but that's fine. It's all extra money to me anyways. I don't mind. I'll take the speed and convenience. And then reaching out. So talked a lot about lists, and then reaching out. We've got cold calling, texting, RVM, right? Ringless voicemail, and door knocking. So ringless voicemail and texting, they've kind of gotten a lot of heat over. Ben, you might know a little bit more about this than I do. Maybe not. But it's kind of been back and forth on kind of rules and regulations and all this stuff. Ringless voicemail, I think they really cracked down on over the past few years. I'm not sure if they lightened up or people have kind of found a way to make it work. But texting and ringless voicemail specifically, I think have gotten a bit of heat.
So with a lot of that comes down to TS or TCPA laws, and then there's the FCC that's coming in regards to PPL, but that's topic we can talk about later. Now there was that recently, I think it was last year, if I'm not mistaken, the A2P 10DLC came in, and I know like a lot of wholesalers who were heavily reliant on text blasting. In other words, they were screwed in a month, right? Mm-hmm. So we ran into the challenges of not being able to text, but obviously we went through the verification process. So we got all of our clients verified really, really quickly in regards to that. But there's like rules where whenever you're, especially on inbound ad side, on the form, you actually have to create like a little checkbox that gives the company or the investor consent to actually reach out to them, stay in contact with them, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not familiar with how you can really do this when you're doing SMS, because you're pulling a list and quote unquote unsolicitedly shooting messages towards them. So I don't really know what people are doing nowadays besides 10DLC or shooting from toll-free numbers.
Yeah, and what I've seen is it can kind of change depending on what kind of software, what provider you're doing. You know, some require a little bit more restrictions than others. Again, guys, always play by the rules, right? Be careful. And you know, don't do anything you're not supposed to be doing. From what I've seen, I mean, there's still people doing them, both texting and ringless voicemail. So whether they should be or not, I am not necessarily 100% sure, but those are options. Now, the other thing, though, so cold calling, and again, it's honestly, it applies to all of them, right? So play by the rules with all of them. There's ways that you can use them properly, and there's ways that you can abuse it. Don't abuse it, guys. Right? So texting and RVM, the nice things about those is texting, it can be relatively cheap. And just very simple, right? Especially with a lot of the tools that are out there nowadays, you know, click at the button and you're sending text messages. Some tools are cheaper than others. Depending what tools and whatnot you use, it can be expensive. So just keep that in mind. Or, you know, again, depending on the tool, it could be very cheap. I think one of the things people like a lot about texting is everyone looks at a text message. You know, everyone looks at a text message, and it's very simple to do that initial reach. Cold calling, right? It's a little bit more, takes more work to do cold calling, right? Take some grit. And also, not everyone picks up calls from numbers that they don't know. And then ringless voicemail is kind of like sending an audio text message, right? So ringless voicemail is to where, have you guys ever seen on your phone to where it'll say you have a missed call and a voicemail? Yep. And you're like, oh, that's weird. My like phone never rang. Yeah, because you got sent a ringless voicemail, right? Which means your phone was it wasn't meant to ring. They just sent you a voicemail and it never rang. And so you'll listen to the voicemail, and then it kind of goes from there, you know, as far as the conversation. So again, ringless voicemail, definitely one of the ones you want to be careful. And then door knocking, again, door knocking can be an option. Now, with kind of these lists, I like texting a lot, so long as you're doing it, you know, correctly and not getting in trouble. I think a lot of people are comfortable with sending text messages. You know, there's nothing too scary about clicking a button and sending out a text message to somebody. But getting on the phone, you know, with cold calling, that's difficult for a lot of people. I know it was difficult for me when I first got started. Texting kind of lowers that barrier to entry a little bit, I think, for both sides. So I really do like that aspect of texting. Now, cold calling, the nice thing with cold calling and texting, and honestly, even ringless voicemail, they're cheap. They're all relatively cheap. And a lot depends on kind of what tools you use and how you use them, but you can be very effective. Door knocking, honestly, I never did any door knocking. I just always felt like I could do a lot more with my time using a different tool, and I just never was that crazy about the idea of physically knocking on somebody's door. I would only do door knocking personally, again, if I had an incredibly targeted list, and I probably wouldn't even do it unless I had already spoken to the lead at some point in time, and I knew, no, this is a hot lead, you know, and either I can't get a hold of them on the phone anymore, or, you know, they're not responding to my follow-up messages. Then I might door knock. But That's not something I personally would lead with. Now, again, budget comes into play with all of this, guys. So again, cold calling, texting, really, like these are things to where you can be using softwares and tools that make it a lot easier, but that's going to cut into, you're going to need to have some type of monthly budget for that. Or you could use your personal cell phone. Now, again, another reason why I like going after these really, really highly targeted lists like pre-foreclosure and probate is I can go after a much smaller list at a higher in a higher quality way, right? So rather than just using a dialer to where everyone gets called one time, well, maybe I'm calling the pre-foreclosure list, and maybe I'm calling with my personal cell phone, and maybe I'm calling twice, leaving a voicemail, and sending a text message. And then maybe I'm doing that 2 to 3 times a day per contact. Now you might say, well, Nate, oh my gosh, if I'm doing that many times per contact, I'm not going to be able to work, a really big list. Exactly. You're only going to be able to go after a small targeted list. And that's why you want to make sure it is a list that is very, very, very highly motivated, right? Because again, you're going to be able to do the unscalable thing. And here's the nice thing. If you don't have the funds for certain tools and whatnot, sometimes that can work in your favor, because when you're going after the really targeted lists, and if you're using your personal cell phone, the funny thing is it a little bit like, could I call through faster with a dialer? Yes. But when you're using your personal cell phone, what you'll find more often than not is that your contact rate and basically all your numbers are going to perform that much better because it is using your personal cell phone. So the numbers aren't popping up as spam. People see, if you're using an iPhone, they're seeing the blue text message, or the message is at least going through. They're getting the actual voicemail. This is huge. And that's why, this is what we do for the clients that we work with. And that's why when we talk about KPIs, I'm like, look, the KPIs from what we have them do, I'm like, you can't even compare these KPIs to other companies and other people, because your KPIs are going to be so much more effective than anyone else's, to where like the numbers just look ridiculous. Like you don't need, your contact rate of 10%, it is way higher, right? Your KPIs, your conversions are like 2, 3, 4x from what the normal person or normal company would be. So kind of segueing into what my personal favorite approach is, I love going after a really, really targeted list, again, like pre-foreclosure or probate. If I am brand new and I'm looking to get from 0 to 2 to 3 deals per month consistently, I want to go after a highly targeted list. And for reaching out to that list, I actually want to do a combination of things. So I don't want to just cold call or text or voicemail. I want to do a combination, right? And the exact sequence of what I just mentioned, pre-foreclosure list, and then I'm going to call twice, leave a voicemail, and send a text message. I'm doing that immediately when I call that address the first time. And then I will do it to that same address 2 to 3 times per day until I get a response, right? And I have that first conversation. From that, I am also at a certain point, once I filter through the list, right, I'm going to take out all the people that I got a hold of, and then everyone else I still haven't got a hold of, I now might send them a piece of direct mail. I might send them a postcard. I might send them a handwritten letter. And the reason why is I'm now doing what's called an omni-channel approach to the marketing, right? I'm hitting them from all angles, right? We're calling, we're texting, we're doing voicemail, we're sending them a piece of direct mail. And the reason why is now you're going to be able to squeeze every last bit of juice out of that list, because different people respond to different things. Some people are the type of people to read and respond to a text message. Some people are the type of people to where they pick up the phone and have a conversation. Some people check their mail. Yeah, and I know it's 2024, but some people still check the mail, right? And look at that. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to get all the people in that list, all the different types. You're hitting all of them, but you're doing it in such a cost-effective way to where now you're hitting this list. You're reaching out to these people at a higher quality than all these other companies, and you're doing it on a really cheap budget. Yeah, direct mail can get expensive if you're mailing, a list of 5,000, 10,000 houses. But what if I'm sending direct mail to like 50 people? Right? A postcard's like 50 cents, right? Or I could do a handwritten letter. It's not that expensive if my list is small. And then from there, well, how many houses, how many addresses do I need to convert to a deal? It is going to be so much smaller than anything else because the quality of what you're doing is so much higher. So that's just my personal favorite. Ben, I'm curious if you have any takes, things you like, things you don't like.
So on the organic side / outbound side, I would recommend cold calling. The biggest reason I feel that way is because of it building tough skin. It builds thick skin, whatever, right? So when I first started, I started out cold calling, and then when I transitioned to an easier marketing channel, for example, or higher intent marketing channel like inbound marketing, it's night and day, right? You go from people that are yelling at you, screaming at you on the phone, to getting on the phone with people that are like just giving themselves away to you, literally. So it's like it's easy layups because the intent, it was anchored so high and so like uncomfortable to where whenever you talk to somebody that's like really wants your help, that's ready to go, it's like, oh my god, this is the dream, and it's literally a dream, right? And in addition to that, when it comes to cold calling, there are a few things that I can drop there. I know you talked about doing double taps. We prefer to do triple, if not quadruple taps, right? And the way we do it is we do one batch, not one batch, but like one rep of them. So you do your first rep, you text, call, email, or text, a voicemail and text, and then you wait 5 minutes, and then you do it again, right? So that's 2 sets, right? Or 2 reps. So that's sort of how we do it when it comes to cold calling. In addition to that, a lot of the wholesalers that struggle with contact rates, that's the first thing you can solve. The second thing is switching your phone numbers, right? Me personally, I don't like when I first started, I didn't care. Yes, call from your personal number, but once you start to get a few deals and you got something going on, have a dialer or have a CRM. And the secret that we use is you can get your phone numbers verified. There's a bunch of online servers that you can go through that would clean up your phone numbers. That way, whenever you call yourself or you call your other team members, it doesn't pop up as spam, right? There's somewhere you can even register them to the point where it shows up as Nathan buys houses on the contact, right? So a practice that I use in the past and to this day to keeping our phone numbers for us and our clients refreshed is typically every month we refresh the phone numbers. We refresh the phone numbers and we we refresh the phone numbers and we register them to make sure that that is not coming up, right? Because we will notice if we're making 100 dials and 3 people pick up, we're like, okay, we have a contact rate issue. Let's clean up our phone numbers. So
I love that.
That's our current approach.
That's good. I know most people, they would agree with you 100% on the 3 and even 4. I don't know too many people doing 4 dials. So that's awesome, man. Oh my gosh. The phone rings 6 times. That person's totally happy when they answer it.
Yep. That's why you got to get that checkbox verified in there. The verification, the consent form.
Hey, one thing I'll just touch on, because I know sometimes it can be scary, like, oh my gosh, like calling somebody like twice in a row or 3 or 4 times. Guys, remember, we're looking for motivated sellers, right? So people that are in distress. If somebody picks up the phone, they're angry, they're not in distress, and they yell at you and they're not interested in selling the property. Hey, that's okay. No harm, no foul. I'm so sorry. Have a blessed day. But the people that are distressed and have like they have no one to help them. Like they need you to reach out, right? That like they are waiting and hoping on you. So make the effort, right? Yes, some people are going to get upset, but it's because you're looking for the people that you truly can help.
100%.
And then I'd love to touch on, so we kind of talked a lot about the strategies, or my personal favorite lead generation methods for, how do I go from 0 to 2 to 3 deals per month? But once I'm kind of doing those 2 to 3 deals per month, Ben, I'd love to chat a little bit, PPC particularly, and that's what you work with, because kind of seems like that's what where everyone ends up at is going. And I'd love to know what is it that's so like, what does that look like? Why does everybody go to that channel? Why does everyone end up there? What's so great about it?
The easiest way I can put it is because it's the closest thing you can get to a lay down sale, right? whenever I speak on this, I break it down into two buckets, right? I break it down into a scenario. The analogy that I like to use is the bar analogy, the girl at the bar, right? So the way it goes is whenever let's say you go to a bar and you see a pretty girl in the corner and you go up to her and she says no. You go back to your friend, go back to your buddy, go back to your boys, and he says, just go talk to another one. So you talk to 10 different girls that night. Some reject you, some may say yes, they're interested. And out of that, you might get one girl you can, go on a date, whatever you want to call it. That's outbound marketing. The alternative is inbound marketing. Imagine if you invested in yourself, you clean your hair, you smell good, you look good, invest in nice clothes, etc., and the girl comes up and asks you for your number. The punchline then becomes, how much easier is it for you to get to know her? A lot easier. Why? Because the girl approached you. And similar to inbound marketing, the prospect who needs help is raising their hand, asking for your help, right? So you literally just have to have that conversation, somewhat sound a little bit different than the competitor who they're probably shopping you with. And it is a little more complicated than that, but you would have to deal with it, right? And the reason why I recommend more established investors to have it is because of the fundamentals, right? If you're a brand new wholesaler and you have no experience talking to sellers, you don't have a contract in place, you don't even know how to lock up or draft a contract, you don't know how to dispo, you don't have any processes, you're going to spend all this money to get literally nothing, right? So for us personally at our company, we like to work with, we only work with, it's not we like to, but we only work with the investors that are already established and they're doing 2 to 3 deals per month, is because they have the foundation in order to scale, right? So for us, we prefer, we really like to work with like virtual and nationwide clients because we're able to reach out to more people, tap into more markets, and pretty much just dispo and close deals from there, right? In addition to that, our ideal avatar, they have to have around 4 to 5K per month in marketing budget, because you have to have a realistic marketing budget, because if you're not spending enough, it makes no sense, right? If you're spending like $1,500 a month on inbound marketing or ad spend, it's the equivalent of calling 10 people a day and expecting and wondering why you're not closing deals, right? It makes no sense. So you have to have a sufficient marketing budget in place and do it for, I'd say, 2 to 3 months consistently to start to get reasonable results, right? So that's why most people do inbound marketing, right? And there's tiers to it, right? Most people would start off at Facebook ads, and the way we look at Facebook is that it's more of a volume of leads than it is a quality of leads, right? So you're starting out with volume. It on average KPI takes anywhere from 1 out of 20 and 25 leads to get a contract or a deal. And then once you transition to PPC, our average clients are taking anywhere from 8 to 10 leads to close a deal. So that's our current, that's what we notice right now on the inbound marketing space.
That's awesome, man. 8 to 10 leads per deal. That's wild. That is awesome.
And what that does is that it gives you so much room to scale, right? With the average KPI for cold calling, as an example, where you're pulling lists, you have a VA, dialing, lead managers, etc., is last time I checked, it was like 1 out of 50, 1 out of 60, right? So you're speaking to almost a fifth of the leads to close the same number of deals, right? Now, the reason why people don't do it is because it costs more money up front, right? There's a bit of a bigger entry barrier of entry, right? That's why you see most of these investors who are big influencers that dominate their market, they're just flooding their market with PPC leads and just hitting the prospects from everywhere they literally can, right? The billboards, right? You put a PPC ad in front of them, you retarget them with Facebook, and then they're driving down the highway, they see your face on a fucking highway. They're like, okay, this guy might, know what he's talking about.
Yeah, and the other big thing is, if I want to ramp up cold calling or there's a lot of manual labor that goes into that. A lot more people, pay per click. I mean, overnight at the click of a button, you can kind of, turn it up or turn it down. So you have so much control over how easily do I want to increase or decrease this. To whereas, some of these other channels that we talked about, it's a lot more of an effort. It's a little bit slower turning and typically takes a lot more kind of human workforce, to put that into place. So that's awesome, man. I love that. Well, we went over a ton of stuff today. I hope you guys got some value out of it. One thing I do want to mention, though, specific to marketing, is all of this stuff is great, but if you are not in the right market, none of these are going to perform well for you. So first and foremost, everything starts with make sure you're in a good market to where that performs. There should be a video either up to the left or right as to where we kind of talk about that. How do I make sure I'm in a good market? How do I find the right market? If it's not up right now, it will be at some point. Or you can find it on YouTube. And guys, if you want to learn more, if you go to Painless Flipping Facebook group, free Facebook group, we have a free wholesaling course right in there for you on how to do everything. And Ben, if people want to, if they're at that 2 to 3 deals per month, and they're looking to kind of upgrade into scaling their wholesaling business, where can they connect with you?
Absolutely. So the best way to reach out to me is obviously either Facebook or Instagram. I'm more active on Instagram. I'm not calling, right? So my Instagram is official, like OFFICIAL, Benjamin, and then my last name. So you can see it right here. Just type, or you probably just type my name and see me. And just shoot me a DM. I love to share any resources, assets, templates, trackers, playbooks that I can share to help you or the viewer scale their business. Obviously, I'll give it out for free because I just want people to win. So yeah, that's the easiest and quickest way to find me.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you, bro, for joining me today. Guys, I hope you got a lot out of it. Wish you the best of luck and hope to talk to you guys soon. Take care. Have a good one.
See ya.